Hi, my name is Yasmin. Welcome back to 7 Books, 7 Genres. 2 things to address before we get started. 1, elephant in the room, for me at least. I have a new mic stand. I tried to make it pretty because it's really fucking ugly, but we are testing out levels, so if the audio in this video isn't as good as it normally is or goes up and down in quality, really sorry about that. I'm still getting the hang of it. And second thing, if the lighting is different, I've put my blind down a little bit so we don't get such a harsh lighting, but it does mean we're going to have a bit of a softer vibe. Today we are going to be looking at literary fiction, or Litfic as it's known in the reading community. Literary fiction is kind of hard to define. If you look up a definition, you'll kind of find a few different ones. Typically it has a focus on depth of character, a fast-paced plot, and it could also have mentions of political, social themes as well. Usually it's unpacking some kind of topic, it has an undertone to it. The book for today is Workhorse by Caroline Palmer. Now, this was actually a book that I was reading for fun. It was on the Goodreads challenge list for this spring, and I really wanted to try and finish it. Reserved it at my library, and it came in, and I was just going to read it, not take any notes, and do my historical book, but I loved this book so much. I would be so upset if I didn't get to talk about it. So we are going to film this one before I film my historical book review, but the historical book review should still have come out last week, and this video is the Thursday after. So, Workhorse. What is it about? First of all, let's get into some trigger warnings. It's not a particularly graphic book, but there are some strong references to sexism, implied sexual assault, some child abuse and violence, general things like that. Death, big emphasis on fat phobia. It is set in the fashion industry. Yeah, all of these. So if you think that it's going to be kind of sensitive or reinforce any bad ideas you might have about body image, maybe steer clear, but it is criticizing these ideals. It's not promoting them. Workhorse is about a girl named Cloda, or Chloe as the book calls her, and she is insane. We love her. She's recently moved to New York and she is trying to make it big as a magazine editor. So she's working for, I don't actually think her magazine is ever named, or at least it's not named often, but she is working for a big time magazine. She is currently, when we first meet her, an editorial assistant, grinding away to fit into this high-class world with old money people, beauty standards that she doesn't fit, and not very much money. Not very much money at all. We first meet her and we are introduced, it's a scene of her switching her shoes to heels right before she gets into the office because she cannot walk in her heels that far. So she takes the subway every morning and then she hides in a little pocket and she just takes her shoes off and swaps them. If this book sounds like something you want to read, I would recommend skipping this section and going to the spoiler-free section, which will be here. I'm warning you now. So if you want to skip, like, now is the time. So let's get into it. As I said before, opening scene is her taking her shoes off, slapping them in her bag, and swapping them to heels. We are introduced to life at the office pretty quick, and it's very clear that this is her life. Also, I got a new book for my notes. So she is not hygienic. She gets to the office and she realizes she left her desk a mess on Friday. When I say a mess, I mean a mess. She left snotty tissues on the desk. She left her drawer open with dirty underwear in it. Now listen, messy is one thing, unhygienic, don't love it. But immediately I was like, okay, diva, something is happening here with you. And she realizes her boss has left some papers for her on her desk and has seen the state it's in, and she's like, ugh. Then we get introduced to her friend Davis from work. Davis Lawrence is a big shot, daughter of an actress, old money, very elegant, very beautiful, blonde, skinny, fits all of the kind of boxes that you're supposed to fit in this industry. Cloda, or Chloe, I'm going to call her Chloe, is 5'10", 150 pounds, which is not a lot. If you look up a picture of that, that is a healthy weight for that height. But in this industry in 2003 or 2002 when it's set, not ideal. This is part 1 of the book. The book is split up into 3 parts. So you have part 1, which is early in her career, part 2, which is a little bit later on, and then part 3, which is about 2006 to 2008, I want to say. She introduces us to Davis, and it's very obvious she is, one, deeply socially anxious. She's always thinking about how what she's saying is exposing herself as a fraud, or she doesn't really know what she's talking about and they're all going to find out and she's going to be kicked out or fired. And two, she has a big old gay crush on Davis. Something is afoot. And I will get to the bottom of it. I will. It was insane. Within the first, this is genuinely my first note, I put she has a big lesbian crush on Davis. But it's Pride Month, so we're gonna investigate. Her boss is getting divorced, so she tells Chloe to go to the mail department, mail her ring back home. She goes down there, it's a whole fun and games, and I really like the dialogue in this section. I think it introduces you to her really well. I'm going to read you just like a little quote from it. She gives the ring to the woman in packing, and the woman in packing is not very pleased. She's like acting like it's a real big pain, and she puts this really expensive diamond engagement ring in just like an envelope. Here's an example of the dialogue. So, I hate to be a pain, but maybe we should put it in a proper box, I suggest, with like that bubble wrap. I point to a shelf of packing supplies behind her. The woman looks like she might kill me. Sorry, I lower my voice to a conspiratorial whisper in an attempt to entice her into compliance with a tantalizing secret. It's just that it's a gigantic engagement ring. Like, giant. The diamond is legitimately the size of my thumbnail. Here's the bit I like. I hold up my thumb to provide a visual, as if she is not in possession of two perfectly functional thumbs of her own, but she just glares at me. I start to wonder if maybe she doesn't speak English, but I'm pretty sure she just hates dealing with people like me all day. I don't like her either, because for some reason she's allowed to be bad at her job, and I'm supposed to feel guilty for asking her to do the one idiotic thing for which she is paid. It's so funny. She's a funny lady, and I love her, and she's a mess. So, she goes back upstairs from the shipping department, and there is a mess in the office. Everyone's running around. Her boss has been fired. Her boss isn't the boss of the magazine. It's an editor for this big fashion section of the magazine. But there's lots and lots of higher-ups that she has to answer to. This is just the main woman she was assisting. She gets fired, and then Chloe has to go to an event in her place. She doesn't have to, but she kind of really wants to. And everyone's saying, yeah, you might as well. Davis tells her that she needs to get a dress for this. Then we meet Allie. Allie is Chloe's best friend from back home. They both kind of moved to New York together. And when she first moved to New York, Allie let her stay in her place for a while and was very kind about it all. So her and Allie are really, really close. They're great friends, and they kind of are very different people, but are similar in the sense that they're both trying to make it. Allie is getting her PhD, whereas Chloe is just really, really focused on work and grinding away and fitting into this bigger picture in the magazine. While she's planning for this event, Davis takes her down to the fashion section. At her job, she can borrow lots of pieces from the magazine that gets sent in. You just have to kind of take a photo of yourself with them. And Davis tries to get her down there to try on some dresses, and they have to order them in because she's too big. This is the 2000s when everyone being a size 0 meant genuinely stick thin, and Chloe is obviously the weight of a healthy woman, and therefore she will not fit into them. She has a lot of like really horrible self-talk and will say things like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed, I'm standing there and all I can think to do is self-deprecate. She has a habit of self-deprecating. Whenever she's uncomfortable, she'll just say something like, I know I'm way too big, like you're doing me a huge favor. And everyone just finds it kind of awkward and they're like, yeah. And it's a tough read, for sure. After this event, Davis invites her on a night out and they go clubbing with some of her friends. They go to some bars, and then Davis takes her hand and pulls her away, and the tension, and they never say anything about it. She will never say, like, I have a crush on her. She'll just say stuff like, I realize breathlessly she's still holding my hand. I feel like the guy from Dexter, the bald guy, there's always like, because there is always something just a little bit homoerotic going on, and they never acknowledge it. Before she actually goes out to the club, she flirts with a guy named Oliver Barringer, I want to say is his last name. I don't care. I'm not reading that again. He's annoying. He is kind of a sleazy guy. He mentions having a girlfriend, but then will flirt with her twice as hard afterwards. And there's some really good commentary here about things like this. I'm not going to find this quote. I didn't put down a page number and it's 500 pages. She basically talks about how guys will mention they have a girlfriend and then flirt with you twice as hard, and you're supposed to kind of jump at it and prove yourself to be someone they can cheat with, and then obviously they'll never call you back because they've got a girlfriend. So it's a game that she doesn't really understand, but she still plays it anyway. And this is a big theme in the book, is Chloe will demonstrate a really strong understanding of social dynamics, what a person needs from her, why they need it, and sexism and class issues, and how you have to mold yourself as a woman to fit into these standards that are kind of impossible. And she knows all of this, and instead of being like, this is wrong, she goes, okay, well, I want to be the best at doing that. I want to be the best at being whatever people need me to be. And it's a really, really interesting, she has this really keen awareness, but such intense self-hatred that she doesn't care that the way she's being treated is unfair. She'll just go for it so that she'll be accepted. Then Davis takes her shopping. We find out later on that it's been kind of implied from the higher ups that Davis needs to take her shopping. She doesn't have expensive clothes. And Davis takes her to a Louis Vuitton sample sale and she buys a pair of boots for $350, which back then was even more money. These boots are awesome, but she can't afford really anything else. She's not on a high salary. I think she's on $24,000 a year. Real low. Davis takes her to another shop and says, you have to buy this coat. You have to buy this coat. It looks so good on you. It's a red wool coat and it looks great on her. She loves it, but she knows she can't afford it. Davis says, well, it's only $1,200 and I get it half price because I'm an editor. So just take this, like take my discount and get it, like it's cheap. And she cannot afford a $600 coat. She cannot. Even minus tax, $500, cannot afford that either. It's way too much money. Her rent alone is like almost that price. So she doesn't really know what to do. Then Davis takes a phone call and Chloe pretends to be Davis, takes her bag, pays using Davis's mum's credit card. Now, Davis had just said in a conversation that her mum has an accountant and the accountant will not flag anything under $1,000. So she buys loads of stuff on her mum's card, and so long as it's under $1,000, the accountant doesn't care. They just cost it like as a regular expense. So Chloe knows that it won't get flagged, and she pretends to be Davis to this lady to get the discount. The lady's kind of fawning over her. She pays on her card. She says, oh, it's my mother's card. I hope that's okay. And the lady goes, oh, around here, someone's always using someone else's card. Don't worry about it. Wraps it up for her and takes her away. She takes the coat away, sorry. And she's just successfully stolen this coat, basically. Davis comes back in, she gives her the bag, and they kind of leave. Then we skip to her meeting her new boss. Oh my god, this is awkward. Her new boss is this, I want to say she's a French lady. She might be Italian. I forgot to read. It was a long time ago. Her name is Isabel, and she's a very small lady, very chic, very polite and classy and well-trained. And Chloe thinks she's awesome, but she also thinks she is going to get fired because most new editors will bring in a new assistant. They don't want the old one. She is in her first meeting with this lady, and the lady asks her if she will plan somewhere for them to go for lunch. Chloe knows that she has to pick somewhere kind of trendy, cool, to show that she knows what's going on, but also somewhere classy and interesting, and that shows that she is one of them. The whole time we're reading this book, she has kind of a mantra that says, I'm the right kind of girl. And she'll talk about the wrong kind of girl. She'll talk about the girl she doesn't like. She's got kind of a lot of internalized misogyny, and she doesn't care that these standards are ridiculous. She just wants to fit them. So she takes Isabel to dinner, and it is insanely awkward. It's so awkward. Oh my god. It's bad. She orders coffee because they were going to go for lunch, but then Isabel said, oh no, we're just going to get coffees. Sorry, someone's getting arrested or something. I don't know. Isabel says, oh no, we're going to get coffees now because I have an appointment after this. I have a meeting and I can't really take all the time I need for lunch. So we're just going to get coffee, have a chat, and then leave. So she orders a coffee, and it comes in a French press, or a cafetiere as we call it in Europe. So one of the ones where it's a pot, and then you have the kind of, it looks like a plunger, is a press. You push it down after the coffee has brewed and it filters out all the grounds in the bottom, and you can just pour it. She doesn't know what this is. She doesn't know how to use one, so she just leaves it sitting on the table, and she is just talking. Her mouth is going. It's like verbal diarrhea. She's saying anything. She's saying about how, oh, people put all sorts of expenses on the company. Yeah, I get my dry cleaning done all the time on the company. And Isabel's like, she's like, well, it's better than this guy. He gets hotel room porn. And Isabel's like, oh. And then she panics and she just says, please don't fire me. And it's very awkward. We don't really know how this is received. We don't get any information from Chloe. They walk back and she bumps into Mark Engelbeck, who is the head of publishing, kind of, or he is a publisher on this team for the magazine. So he doesn't just oversee fashion, he's on all of it. He decides what gets published. And she is kind of really wants him to notice her, to like her. He doesn't really look at her. He talks to Isabel, and Isabel's married. She's not interested in talking to this guy, flirting with this guy. She's got her position. And he suggests, oh, we should go out for dinner, you know, we should go get some wine and a dinner. And she says, no, I think lunch would be better for me. I think I would prefer lunch. And then instead of waiting for him to end the conversation, she walks off. And Chloe finds this really, really cool. She thinks she is awesome. And I liked that. I thought it was really interesting that Chloe even notices things like, well, the man usually ends the conversation and you have to stand there and wait until they feel like ending it. She goes out again to the club with Davis, and she's introduced to a guy called Harry Wood. He is a journalist / photographer. He takes really iconic photos for people. He's kind of a household name in that scene. And he's got this kind of weird charisma about him. She can tell something is going on between Harry and Davis, maybe sexual, maybe romantic, maybe just friends. But he shows up late. They've been waiting for ages. And then he brings Coke. They go to the bathroom. Harry tries to take a picture of Davis doing the Coke. She doesn't mind. Then he tries to take one of Chloe, and she kind of shrieks. She's like, no. And then she has to cover it up, and she's like, oh, no profile shots, no profile shots. And he laughs. He's like, oh, I like this girl. And then she decides, okay, I want to be a part of their world, and does Coke with them, even though she doesn't want to. Then we cut to a few weeks later. Her boss has actually been training her. She'll invite Chloe to just sit in her room and watch her edit. And at first Chloe thinks, oh, I need to kind of, you know, do something. I need to assist her in some way. But actually, Isabel just wants her to watch and learn so that she gets better. And slowly she does. It's going well. She's quite happy. She feels like she's starting to understand things. And then her second in command in the fashion magazine, this woman called LK. So she's not the boss, but she's kind of the boss of this little area. She comes in and she tells Isabel, we need another 6 pages. Isabel's like, where the hell am I going to get 6 pages from? That's a lot of writing. And she says to Chloe, pitch me everything you have. So Chloe stays up all night. She's planning everything. She's fantasizing about how the pitch will go. And none of her ideas go through. They go to this girl called Lydia St. Clair Abbott. Now, Liddy, as she's called, Chloe hates. She sees Liddy as kind of the antithesis of her. She is from old money. She's very stylish and interesting and cool, and she gets to kind of waltz in and she pitches her ideas, and Chloe hates her. Before this, we saw her sabotage her by saying that the printer was broken, and really she would take the freshly printed papers from the printer and hide them so that Liddy could not pitch her ideas. And she's furious that Liddy gets this opportunity, and she's like, well, what does she have that I don't? But that's kind of just how it goes. Then we skip again. This book does skip a lot, by the way. There's a lot of kind of like, it will be one scene and then it will just kind of cut to another. It's not necessarily like today, tomorrow, the next day. It will be like today, tomorrow, next week. 2 weeks, you know, it's just kind of whatever's relevant. She goes to the Hamptons with Davis and Barbara, Davis's mother. She looks up to Barbara. She thinks Barbara is so glamorous and interesting, although she is a little bit washed up. At this Hamptons party, she feels really out of place. She brought a suitcase to travel over there. Everyone else just had a tote bag. She tries on clothes to go swimming, and Barbara and Davis are like, no. So Barbara lends her some clothes, and she sees that Chloe really likes this pair of earrings. She was holding them up to her ears while Barbara was looking through her closet. And she's like, oh, you should borrow them. They look really cute on you. They're really sweet. And Chloe feels a bit uncomfortable by this generosity. She feels like it's a bit of a trick. She never really knows when she's supposed to accept things or say no, if it's a genuine offer or if it's a hint that she's ugly or poor. They swim for the day. Barbara invites Chloe to this party at a lady's house. Her name is Susan Goldsmith Cohen, I think. And she's kind of a big figure, and she has a lot of really cool collectible pieces. Chloe's kind of walking around trying to find her place at the party. She gets a bit uncomfortable and she goes to look for the bathroom. Someone says, oh, it's just through there, it's in the house, and then that way. So she goes in, she looks around, she can't really find it, but she sees a study and she's really intrigued by it. She goes in, she's like, wow, this is so nice. And she sees a bronze horse statue and she holds it. She really likes it. She's really drawn to this horse. It has like a feminine grace about it she really likes. And she has a big straw bag with her. And because she just wants to see how it feels to steal the horse, she puts it in her bag. She didn't really even want it. She just wanted to know that she could have it. And then she was planning on maybe putting it back. But while she is in the study, a lady goes, what are you doing in here? And it's Susan, the person whose party it is. She says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was looking for the bathroom. Stop. And she knows that this lady is suspicious of her, but hasn't seen her do anything. So the lady's kind of frowning. She's like, well, the bathroom is there. There's no reason that you should be here when the bathroom is over there. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I came with Barbara and Davis. And she watches the woman's face relax, because in this world, if you know someone, you kind of are someone. Then Susan pretends to know her, sends her on her way. At the end of the night, there are photos taken with all of them, and people are like holding her bag for her. Barbara holds her bag for a photo, and she's like, oh my God. And they're like, why is it so heavy? And she goes, I don't know. And she successfully steals this horse, wraps it up in a towel, puts it in her room, leaves it. Then her and Davis go swimming. It is so... There's no heterosexual explanation for it. I'm not joking. It's so good, but something is happening. She swims out to Davis, and Davis grabs her like in a little monkey hold, you know, where you put your arms and your legs around them. And she's kind of like really obsessed in the moment. And then Davis swims under her legs. I'm going to read this to you, and I really need you to understand the magnitude of her crush on Davis. At one point on the long return to shore, Davis swims between my open legs. Her body feels slick and slippery as it glides against my upper thighs and brushes with a breathless sigh against the wanting triangle under my suit. And they never mention this again. Wanting triangle? Nothing to say about that? So then something weird happens. She dunks Davis underwater, and Davis like pops back up, and it's like, haha. And then she does it again, and she just holds her there. And at this point in the book, you're thinking, oh my God, is she gonna fucking kill Davis? Is that what this is turning into? And she holds and holds and holds her, even when Davis kind of goes slack. And then she feels teeth rip into her arm, and Davis swims away from her and struggles and kind of like just starts running back to shore, but doesn't want to play it like she was scared. And Chloe plays like innocent. She's like, Davis, are you okay? Is everything okay? Like she didn't just try and drown her. They walk back up awkwardly, and Davis is like, oh, I kind of thought you were trying to drown me. This is going to sound crazy. And Chloe's like, drown you? So it's kind of laughed over, forgiven, but now we know she's got some stuff up there, some crazy stuff. The next day they head home, and her art theft has caught up to her. Okay, she thinks no one will even notice. It turns out in the paper, this horse was stolen from a museum and then dealt to Susan underground, and she realizes the horse is worth like over $1 million, and she's like, and she just has it on her desk. She just loves it. Then we skip again to the big blackout that happened in New York. So this book is fiction, but it does mention real names and real events that happened in New York along that time. So like 9/11 is mentioned, for example. There's a power outage at her job and everyone kind of starts leaving, bringing essential items and getting sent home early because they can't really do any work. Harry Wood calls her, which is surprising. She can't decide when she goes over to his if he's gay or straight. She's trying to figure it out. He's invited her to hang out and she's like looking at things in his room and she's going, okay, grotty mattress, that seems straight, but this poster of an old French movie seems gay. They talk and talk and talk, and they're drinking beers from his fridge before they go bad, and they're getting quite drunk together. They decide to sit out on the street, and he tells her that he might be planning to leave his job and start his own company as kind of an entrepreneur. They both express that they worry about Davis sometimes. She does drink a lot and it's kind of spoken about. Then they decide they want to go to the bodega for beer, and the streets kind of turn from something like cute, like people are playing, to this group of young men kind of terrorizing this group of young girls. Then a middle-aged woman walks past and they push her over. They send the smallest guy to go push her over and she falls and her dog runs away. And Chloe wants to go look for the dog, and she feels this guy chasing her, and she falls over and he's there, and she gets back up, she falls over again, he's there. She runs for her life, loses a flip-flop, is calling for Harry, manages to make her way back, but it's all very tense and scary, and you do really acutely feel this threat of like being a woman in the dark, no way to call for help. And she's finally kind of acknowledging that it's scary, which it was a tough read. She goes back to Harry's place and they sleep next to each other, but they do not sleep together. And he kind of says like, oh, is it okay if I'm really tired? And she's like, yeah, of course. And she wasn't even planning on sleeping with him, but the fact that he said that made her feel like she's not desirable, which is interesting. Then Davis gets engaged to her boyfriend Grant. She throws a party and has a pre-dinner without Chloe. Chloe realizes she gets there, she's invited Allie, she wants Allie to meet Davis, but Davis is like over an hour late, and she's thinking, oh, so they all went and had drinks without me because they hate me. She's already kind of annoyed, agitated. She doesn't like the fact that Davis is going to be engaged and leaving her behind because she wants to get engaged. Then she sees Lydia Sinclair Abbott, who is being surprisingly friendly, and she says, oh, how are you taking the news? And Chloe goes, what news? And Liddy says, oh, she's moving to California. Davis hadn't told her, but she told her nemesis before her, so Chloe is freaking out. She is not happy. She spirals out of control. You can kind of feel that she feels hurt, betrayed, but she's also drunk and kind of going a bit cuckoo. And she confronts Davis publicly. She's like, why the fuck are you moving to California? And you didn't tell me. And Davis is trying to calm it down, but she's also being very icy. She's saying things like, you're embarrassing me, you're embarrassing both of us, and you need to leave. I think you should leave, and things like this. And Chloe's like, fine. And she's going through all the coats, trying to look for her coat. I think Barbara lent her a fur coat, actually. It's Barbara's fur coat. She runs away. She runs out of the party. Davis is trying to talk to her, and so is Harry. And she literally runs and hides behind a dumpster. They go running and they look for her. They can't find her. She kind of stays there. And she hears them both laughing as they're walking past, like it's almost a joke. And then Harry comes back through, and she doesn't see Davis again. We find out the next chapter, Barbara calls Chloe to say that Davis has had an accident. And she has been found with like a sprained wrist and her leg is messed up and she needed stitches and all of this. They suspect she was mugged. And that is where part 1 ends. So I'm going to take a little break, go touch some grass, and then I will come back. I've just taken a little break and I'm back, and I'm going to read you part 2. I am skipping a lot of details out of this book because if I read you every single quote, we would be here for hours and hours and hours. This book is chunky. It's like 550 something pages, and so much happens in all of them, and the writing is so beautiful that I would love to sit here and talk about all of it, but I just cannot. I think you really should read it. So, while Davis is away in the hospital and recovering, Chloe is taking invitations from her desk, and she's getting more popular as Davis's friend. People are asking her about how Davis has been doing, and she's been attending events instead of Davis to represent the magazine. Really, Chloe just wants to attend these events and it will give her a leg up, but she's also playing the role of caring friend and kind person. She's on top of this assisting Davis's boss Kate with her duties as well, but she's still working for Isabel. She gets asked to come to a meeting with LK, who is the second command, and some other writers and editors, and LK asks her, would Davis be feeling up to doing this article? Would she want to write that? We know she knows the family, blah 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 blah. Chloe knows that Davis is done with surgery, but she says, no, I think she has another surgery, because she wants them to kind of look at her and to consider her. And this is well received from the other editors. They're all congratulating her on being so competent and helpful. She looks after Davis quite a lot. Barbara invites her over, wants her to spend a lot of time with Davis, and Davis has kind of shrunk and drawn into herself and become a bit of like a wisp. She doesn't go out, she doesn't want to go back to work, she doesn't really want to try to get her life back. This means that Barbara is kind of replacing Davis with Chloe. She's making Chloe come to events with her, and obviously Chloe is really excited about this, but she feels kind of weird. She also knows that Barbara kind of likes her because she won't outshine Barbara. She knows that she can be whatever Barbara needs her to be. She can fawn over her and say that she's so cool and she's so lucky to have this opportunity and blah 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 blah. We kind of see why Davis is always trying to please her, because Barbara's always kind of moving the bar ever so slightly. One day something will please her, and then the next it makes her angry, and you're kind of always trying to keep on top of her and make sure that nothing you say or do is wrong. I don't know if you can hear that car outside, it's very loud. Then one day she goes over to visit her at night. Barbara says, why don't you stay? You should stay. And Chloe says, oh no, I have work tomorrow and I don't have any clothes, so I couldn't. And Barbara says, oh, take my card and go buy yourself some clothes to stay overnight. Chloe feels like this is kind of a test. She doesn't want to say yes, but she knows she can't afford it, and she knows that Barbara knows that, which embarrasses her. She has an idea and she says, well, what if you took me shopping? Obviously, I'm so bad at this stuff and it would be great if you could help me out. And Barbara loves this idea. She hadn't considered that it could be kind of an outing, and it makes her very pleased that she can kind of meddle in Chloe's life and tell her what to do and how to dress and kind of be so generous publicly. So they go shopping and it is insane. The first kind of hour of it, she goes to meet Barbara in the hair salon, and Barbara convinces her, like ambushes her with a haircut basically. She says, no, it's way too long, you need to do this, and maybe a bang. And she gets this bob she doesn't want. Then they make her try on a load of clothes that do not fit as a kind of humiliation ritual, I guess. The lady says, you're wearing completely the wrong undergarments, let me get you some. They measure her breasts and she says, what bra do you normally wear? And she says 36C. And she goes, that's ridiculous, that's not even a real bra size, the back to cup ratio is just off. She measures her again, she goes, actually you're a 34 double D. And Chloe is embarrassed by having big boobs. She's like, oh my god, that's like a pornographic number, which is really interesting because obviously now if someone said they had double Ds, I don't think many people would be like, what? So it was interesting kind of sign of the times type of thing. Eventually it does get easier and they start bringing her clothes that actually fit, and she wears them and she finds things that Barbara is satisfied with. She assumes Barbara is going to just buy like a couple dresses and maybe some shoes, but she buys all of them. And Chloe feels really gross about this, and she says something that I liked. She said, I would rather steal something than have it given to me because I don't like there being an obvious debt. And I thought that was really telling about her character. She doesn't feel like she deserves any of this and she wants to steal it. She wants to feel like she's grabbed for it and gotten her little paws on it, instead of just, oh yeah, someone wants to help me. Then we check in with Ali, and she is moving in with her boyfriend. Chloe goes to see her in her apartment before she kind of moves out. He's, I think, an investment banker or something, and she's really bitter about this. She's bringing up all these issues with, well, the power dynamic is wrong, like, he's paying way more than you, and blah 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 blah, and really we know she's just jealous. Ali kind of pushes back, and she says, don't you think it's really weird that Barbara is buying you all of these clothes and that all of this is happening? Like, don't you feel weird about it? And Chloe gets defensive, but they kind of patch things up, they're okay. It's just interesting because when we have these brief conversations with Ali, we get to see glimpses of Chloe as a person and not just her being whatever people need her to be. I also like that in this scene she reads a copy of like a famous classic at Ali's, or Ali gives it to her, and then later on in the book she makes a reference to that same book, which I thought was cute. It's a little callback. As her character learns something, she integrates it into her narration. Isabel's pregnant with twins. She's been pregnant once before but didn't kind of let it affect her, but she's newly pregnant, I think about 8 weeks, with twins, and she knows she can't do the flight to LA. She's worried about it affecting the babies, but she doesn't want to kind of tell anyone, so she sends Chloe to LA in her place. Her job is to interview an actress for the magazine, and then also she has to have dinner with one of the senior editors just to kind of keep her happy. Or not dinner, breakfast. When she gets to LA, she goes to the photo shoot where the actress is, where she's due to interview her, and it's chaos, and we get this scene where no one's touched the appetizers, but she's so hungry. She's just flown for hours, and she kind of like crams an appetizer in her mouth and then covers it with the cup so no one saw her eating. There's a lot of disordered eating and ideas about being seen as disgusting or fat or slobby or whatever that I don't love, but it makes sense for the character. It's just like, oh man, you think eating one tiny frittata is gonna like make you giant? Ugh. There's a famous photographer and he's very grouchy, and they're trying to set up all the lights, and he kind of looks around and he points at her and he goes, you, and she thinks she's in trouble. He goes, sit. So she's like, huh? So she goes to sit on the floor, and someone's like, no, he wants you on the set, like he wants to take photos of you. And she's kind of just sat there and she's like, and then she realizes it's because the actress's boyfriend is a linebacker, and she looks the closest thing to a defensive linebacker on the set. And as much as this kind of sucks for her, because she's like, she feels tall and giant and whatever, he takes a couple of Polaroids, and one of the assistants gives one to her, and she says, you're going to want to remember that. Like, you're going to want it. And she thinks she looks great. Then she's having trouble sleeping in her hotel room, and the next morning she goes to breakfast with this woman, Nana, who is an editor who's been there for a long time. Nana's kind of complaining about this, that, and the other. She wants to be bumped to first class. She wants her contract renewed. And Chloe's job is to kind of make her feel important and fix things for her. So she's been told that she had to book her in Coach and not First so that she could fix it, which is interesting. And then she kind of says to Nana that she's like, how do you do it? You know, what's your secret? Nana like cuts her down and basically says that, you know, when you're like us and you're not naturally beautiful, you have to try it twice as hard. And she's like, awkward. We find out that she's being given her own article. It's only like 250 pages, but she's really, really pleased and really excited about it, and she takes the opportunity. We find out after this, she has been spending Barbara's money. She's got her hands on one of Barbara's Amex cards, and she's just buying stuff that she wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. She's keeping it under $1,000 so that no one notices, but she's spending away. I don't know how she thinks she's getting away with this, but she's doing it. And we see it's become kind of a compulsion. She loves to shop for things like she can afford them. She goes again to the Hamptons with them. Davis finds out that her and Harry have been talking. I forgot to include this. It wasn't really in my notes. But Harry has been kind of saying to her like, oh, maybe it would be good for us to work together because you have connections and I can bring you to dinners and we can create this like idea of maybe something happening between us that would be mysterious and exciting to these people. She goes along with it but hasn't told Davis because Davis has been recovering and she doesn't want Davis to feel like she's replaced her, even though that's kind of the goal. Davis sees a paper on page 6 with the two of them in it, her and Harry, and she's at once really pleased that she's in the paper and also like And she kind of says to Davis, oh, we were just at the same party. I'm so sorry. Like, I should have told you, but I didn't. And Davis kind of lets it go, but she won't swim with her again after the last time in the Hamptons when she nearly drowned her. She's like, oh, I don't swim anymore. And Chloe knows this is a lie, but she also understands why. While they're on the beach, Davis warns her about Barbara. She says, like, Barbara isn't everything you think she is. And she seems really nice, but she's always moving the goalposts, and you never know when you're going to cross an invisible line with her. Chloe's kind of like, huh? But she seems so nice. She's so helpful. Davis is like, never mind. So then Barbara makes her go to this party in the Hamptons instead of Davis. It's a lady called Greta Greer, and I love the description of this woman so much. I'm going to read it to you. She exudes that mystical brand of quiet self-assurance that I suspect cannot be manufactured. Whatever she has, she was born with it. As I watch her gesticulate with a stubby cigarette between her fingers, I am bewildered by her hands, which are brown-spotted and run wild with bulging blue veins. They are the hands of a properly elderly woman, and yet they look marvellous to me, fearless and free. She, just gives such good descriptions. So she sees this woman, she thinks she's really cool, and then she kind of gets, overwhelmed at the party and just runs outside because she saw Susan Goldsmith Cohen, whose horse she'd stolen, and she was really scared that she was going to get recognized. So she runs out and she kind of hides, and Greta, the lady whose party it is, comes out and is like, yeah, these things overwhelm me too. Then Greta goes back inside, Chloe goes to stub out her cigarette, and she just seems kind of worn out. And then she hears kind of this commotion, and she sees Davis has shown up. And she's shown up and she looks ethereal, she looks beautiful, she's put in a real effort for the first time in ages. And because she hasn't been coming to any parties, it seems like everyone is just flocking to her. She watches as the handsome man that was talking to Barbara turns and walks towards Davis and sits with her. And Davis kind of knows what she's doing. She's aware that people are looking, and she's doing it on purpose. And Barbara is seething. She's very jealous of Davis. She's super, super jealous. She turns to Chloe when Chloe comes back and she's, where have you been? I've been looking for you everywhere. And Chloe knows she hasn't been. She's just angry. And she kind of says, we're going to go. And we need to get out of here and you need to drive me home. And she's like, okay, sorry. The next morning, Barbara wakes her up at 6:30 in the morning and says, you need to go home. There's been a change of plans. We need to take you home. She's kind of like, ugh, okay, I'm in trouble. And she sees, as Barbara's getting ready to take her back, that Davis is looking out the window, and she worries that Davis has been laid into. And she calls her when she gets back home and she says, I hope you're okay. Is everything all right, with your mum? And Davis goes, oh, Chloe, you can't let her get to you. And it's like, have you been scheming? What are you up to, you tricky bitch? Then she is at a bridesmaid fitting with Ali, because Ali is getting married, as we know. And she can't make the dinner afterwards. Even though she's arranging the bachelorette party and everything else, she just can't make this dinner after to bond with the bridesmaids because she has an interview with some up-and-coming kind of writer. And Harry Wood has invited himself when she told him about this. He said, why don't you just pick me up on your way? I'll just come along. It would be good for us to do that together. And she kind of knows he's a leech, but she also was too polite to say, no, I don't want you to do that. And I liked this quote about men being happy to ask themselves. I truly cannot imagine being as blunt as Harry. It's not simply that I find it embarrassing, which I do. It's also that I've yet to see a woman succeed in this manner. After all, there isn't a lot of power or gratification found in rewarding a pushy woman with the exact thing she wanted in the first place. Apparently, it's far more satisfying to bestow her with something she pretends not to deserve. Yeah. And so he says, well, if you take me on this dinner, then I'll introduce you to this editor, Matthew. He's really cool. He'll be a good contact for you. He works for my website. So she goes to his to pick up Harry, and she goes, oh, where's the guy that you wanted to introduce me to? And he goes, what guy? And she goes, the editor. He goes, oh, yeah, he had to run out, but I gave him your email, and he seemed really interested in talking to you, so... And she knows he's made this up, and he's a scheming little man. Then it's Davis's birthday dinner, and Davis is already really, really drunk, and the whole time Harry is icing her out. He's bringing up anecdotes from their past together. For context, Harry used to go to college with Davis, and he stayed with her various times because he was in foster care. The whole time he's bringing up personal anecdotes They're ignoring Chloe, they're giggling without her, and she's like, what the fuck? And she thinks that maybe she can get Davis alone and away from Harry if she takes her home herself. And she goes, Davis, do you want me to take you home like this? And Davis goes, no, I want Harry. So she spirals. She goes home, she's super drunk. She sits outside, she's lost her key. She's stressing out. And she sees her landlord. She knocks on the door. He comes down and he's like this nice elderly Jewish man. I think he's like only 60 something actually. I don't think he's that old. And he says, Chloe, how many times are you going to do this? You need to stop. And he sees that she's drunk. He says, are you okay? She says, yeah, I'm really sorry, it won't happen again. And he tells her she needs to get her shit together. Then she wakes up in the morning and she goes outside and goes to get some coffee for her hangover or something. And she sees the police and they say, ma'am, do you live here? She says, yeah, I live upstairs, but not in this like downstairs bit. And they go, oh, well, the man's died. And her landlord's soul is dead. He's dead. And that is where part 2 ends off. So I'm going to take another little break, do a lap, stretch, and then I will come back and I will read you part 3. I am back and we are getting into part 3 of Workhorse by Caroline Palmer. Where we left off, her landlord just died. She's struggling a lot with this, but can't really say that she knew him well enough to grieve with his family. So she presses her ear to the ceiling and listens to the services underneath, and hoping for some comfort, doesn't really get any. At the start of this section, she goes back home and she is just kind of hanging out with her mum. Her mother is an Irish Catholic, or her family kind of are, and she goes to a church. I want to say it's like a raffle, an event. I can't remember exactly what. I think a raffle. She is tormented by her lack of husband. She realizes everyone here is asking her about her job. They're saying, oh, is it like Sex in the City? And she honestly just feels terrible because she wants to be a mother and she wants to be a wife and she isn't any of those things, and all she has is her career. She wins the raffle but doesn't really feel like a winner, and then she goes back to New York. Back in New York, the landlady has told her that she just wants to sell the apartment and that Chloe is going to have to find somewhere else to move by the end of the month. She strategically calls Davis crying and says, I got nowhere to live, I can't find anywhere, they're going to kick me out. And Davis, of course, offers, like Chloe knew she would, that Chloe stay with them for a bit. Chloe says that she's going to look for a place, but she has no real intention of doing that. She is fully just moving in with them. The book tells us she has spent over $100,000 of Barbara's money. That is insane. She bumps into Mark Engelbeck and she has lunch with him. Now, he kind of only really takes an interest in her once he knows that she lives in the Upper East Side and that she's kind of got all these fancy clothes now. He can kind of place her as one of them. And he takes her out to lunch and she kind of just plays this typical, oh, you're so interesting, oh, that's so funny. And he likes it. And she kind of is enjoying herself, kind of. And then she sees the editor-in-chief of the magazine and a couple other editors, including I think the second in command, and she knows she's in trouble because this will be seen as her trying to get in with the publisher so she can scam a promotion. He kind of asks her, what do you want to do then? And she says, well, I'd like to be editor-in-chief. Like, she doesn't really want it. And he's like, oh, interesting. And you don't have to please those guys if you want a promotion. It's me you have to please. And she goes, When she gets back, LK calls her to her office and she says, listen, if anyone asks, you went out to lunch with Mark because I told you to, okay? And she realizes LK is covering for her, even though she shouldn't really, because she knows that Chloe is a valuable asset at this point. She's been there for a lot of years. And she kind of realizes, like, everyone on the team will take a bullet for each other. And she says she just wants to see them take a bullet for her before she has to take one for them. Then she finds out that Lydia Sinclair Abbott, was a fraud from some of the fashion people that she hangs out with now. They tell her that she was never a Sinclair Abbott. She actually just dated one of them for a few years in college and then like pretended to be one, and she's been fired for this, but they said it was officially for other reasons. When she gets home, she feels like, oh my god, maybe her being a fraud was the reason I was threatened, and the reason she was so weird around me was because she thought that I would recognize her for what she is instead of me just eating it up. She gets home. She wants to tell someone about it. She wants to tell Davis. She calls for them. No one's there. So she cleans up the kitchen and there's 2 wine glasses and she thinks Barbara and Davis have had some, cleans everything up. and goes to put the phone back on the receiver. It rings, there's a message, and it's the accountant. He's saying, by the way, there's just a couple things, like there's an overdraft on the Amex card. Let me know if you want to talk about anything. And she panics. She thinks, oh my God, Barbara's going to know I've been stealing from her. So she deletes it, turns around, sees Davis in the hallway, and Davis is being kind of weird as well. She's like, oh, I was just in the hallway bathroom because it's the best light for plucking your eyebrows. And she realizes that Davis has probably had someone over. So Davis doesn't know if she's onto her, and she doesn't know if Davis is onto her. It's very interesting. Then Chloe realizes she's got to repay this debt. Like, she cannot have this on her conscience. Then we skip a little bit, and she's got a new boyfriend who she doesn't even name. How am I supposed to think about anything other than gay? Honestly, she has a new boyfriend, and throughout the book it's kind of been alluded to that she doesn't really enjoy sex often, if ever. I don't know if there's a single scene in that book where she's enjoyed hooking up with a man. And she says, like, she feels bad because she'll have sex with her boyfriend and then she feels like he'll want to every time, and she really wishes that wasn't the case. And before that, she'd had a hookup with that Oliver guy. He never really called her back, and she kind of knew that was going to happen, but she just went for it. It's just kind of, like, sad because she doesn't acknowledge it as anything other than that's just how it is. She doesn't acknowledge that there's a world in which she could say no to having sex or could find someone who isn't looking for that from her. She doesn't want to have it, and she has it every time, and it's gross. And I really like the choice to have it portrayed in this way where she knows that she doesn't want to, but she doesn't see it as assault. She sees it as just like, yeah, oh wow. I think it's a very interesting character choice. And it shows that her lack of identity is so strong that she just thinks she has to do what everyone else wants. She bumps into Oliver at the corner store, who she'd had sex with, and he never called her back. And he still sucks. And she's like, yeah, whatever. He starts flirting with her once he finds out that she has a boyfriend. And it's just like, ugh, it's so yucky. She is invited to a benefit as part of her job, and she's really excited about this. She's never been to one before, but she doesn't actually end up being there for very long because she bumps into Mark again and he sweeps her away. He's like, let's get out of here, you know? And she's like, oh, well, it only just started. And he's like, no, the gala ended basically just then. Everyone's going to go to after parties now. The real power move is not going. And she really does want to go because she wanted all the juicy gossip and all the stories of the night out. And she's hoping maybe she can make it afterwards. But she knows that she can't really say no to Mark because he is her superior and she needs to be in his good graces. So she says, okay, fine, wait 10 minutes and get in my like town car and then we'll go. He gets in after like not even 2 minutes because he's impatient. And they go out for dinner. They get really, really drunk and make a mess. They're laughing, they're giggling. And then she gets in the cab home with him and he puts his hand up her skirt. And she just kind of lets him. After this, she feels really gross. He's warned her about some big changes in the office, but she hasn't really seen anything, so she's just avoiding him. And when she comes home after this night out, she finds Davis's lip bleeding. And Davis is on the couch and she's clutching like a bag of frozen peas to her mouth and she's kind of in pain, but just laying there. She tries to ask Davis to go to the hospital. Davis is like, no, we can't go to the hospital. And she's like, well, we need to get Barbara. What's Barbara doing? Why won't she take you? And she goes to try and get Barbara, and Barbara yells at her and screams at her to get out. Chloe is pretty sure that Davis has hit Barbara. They call this guy Philip, who's kind of like, he gets things done for them. And he brings in a doctor who gives Davis 8 stitches in her lip. She calls Harry. He meets up with her and he will not talk to her about this. He gets really closed off when she tries to talk to him. He runs away and goes and gets super drunk. She tries to find him after a drink or two and she finds him really drunk on the side of the road, and he admits to her that on Davis's birthday about a decade ago, when she was like 15 or something, Barbara busted her up so bad she had to go to the hospital, and she made Harry and Davis say that she was mugged by specifically a black man because it's more believable in Central Park, and made Harry go and throw her wallet there and take out all the cash and stuff. And he feels really bad about this, but he's like, well, what could I have done? Like, I have nothing, blah blah blah. And Chloe kind of feels sick. She's trying to say that she's different, but really she hasn't said anything either, so it's kind of like, no one's really helping Davis at all in this situation. Then Harry drags her into this side hustle a few days later. He has invited her to meet with some investors for his new business. He's finally dropped out and started his website. And these are shady businessmen. They want to create products and they want Chloe to submit photos of the designer items that she's looking at before they're launched. This is obviously illegal. Chloe takes Polaroids anyway for her job, but to send these pictures on would get her fired. It's putting her in a lot of risk. But they're saying, we'll pay you like 10k a month or per time or whatever. She's like, oh, that's a lot of money. But she's really angry because Harry has ambushed her. He's basically said already to these people that she's agreed, and they bring it up at the dinner and she has no idea what they're talking about. So she's really upset with him, and he's like, why are you so upset? You just need to learn how to play the game. You're overreacting. And he's always saying these horrible things disguised as like care. He's always saying, oh, you've lost weight, it looks good, keep that up, and things like that. It's like, ugh. And he's just, yeah, he's a nasty. We don't like him, but she still kind of hangs around with him. She takes a couple days and she thinks, I really need to pay Barbara back, so I am going to take this. And she's doing this at her job. Isabel leaves after I think 6 years or so. She takes on Isabel's duties temporarily on kind of a probational basis, but she eventually becomes a full-fledged editor, which is all she's ever wanted. She hires an assistant and she says that she really wants to be cool and detached like Isabel, but she just can't. She tries too hard to be likable, even to her assistant, and it's not great. Then one day she gets a call. She has to pick up a very, very drunk Barbara, who had called Davis multiple times, but Davis wasn't answering. She's panicking. She's like, oh my god, Barbara's so drunk. She gets her back home eventually. While she's sorting everything up, Davis comes in and has just been like on a walk and just wouldn't pick up with her dog. Chloe kind of is like, where the fuck have you been? This is a nightmare and I can't believe you left me to deal with this. And Davis is very nonchalant. She's like, this happens all the time and I didn't want to deal with it. And Chloe realizes Davis is always looking for someone to kind of help her out. This has been a theme throughout the book. Like, Davis always looks around and waits for someone to intervene and to help her and to do something for her. And Chloe really resents it. And this is one of those moments where she especially resents it. She knows that Harry and Davis are both lying about something. She's always seeing them kind of talking or implying that something is going on with the other, but none of them will tell her what's going on and they won't even bring it up. She feels like she's going genuinely insane. Ali then calls her one day and asks if she's free to babysit after work. Chloe says, yeah, of course. And Ali is kind of surprised because she hasn't had much time to show up for her at all lately. And Chloe's like, yeah, no worries. Her baby is 5 months old. Chloe gets there. She's looking after this baby. The baby is very well behaved. It doesn't really tend to wake up. She is drinking this red wine. She gets a bit too drunk and she goes on Harry's Facebook because since this, I forgot to say this, she had a conversation with him a few days prior basically saying, this is sketchy and I don't want a part of it now that I've been promoted. Like, I'm really in a position where I don't want to lose my job. And he's kind of saying, think about it. We can talk about it. And it feels quite ominous. And then he dropped off the face of the earth and won't respond to her. Then she is drunk. She's stalking his Facebook while she's babysitting this child and has posted on Facebook a picture and he's holding a woman's wrist and she sees on the wrist is the bracelet that Davis always wears. And she goes and spirals and she tries to find the location of the venue that he's tagged and she decides, I'm leaving this baby, I'm going. And at this point you're thinking, no, don't leave the baby. And she leaves this baby with a 7-year-old girl on roller skates. She says, can you babysit? I'll give you $20. And she goes and she's like manic, goes to this bar. They aren't even there. She falls over in the bathroom, smashes her wine glass. This poor girl tries to help her up. She snaps at her. She's a mess. She's running around trying to get them to find her, notice her. They're not even there. She realizes, oh, well, Harry wouldn't have posted it, like, at the time he's there. And she goes back and she thinks, it's before 10, it's before they're back, so I'm fine. And Ali and her husband are there and they are furious. They're like, you left our baby just on her own with the door open, are you kidding me? And she was like, no, I left her with a babysitter. And she's like, who? She goes, oh, that girl from down the street. And she's like, she's 7. You left her with a 7-year-old. And she's furious. The husband yells at her. He's like, don't even come back here, get out. And everyone kind of looks at her and judges her. And honestly, yeah, you're a mess. Get out of here. She is really, really onto Harry and Davis. She knows something is up. She's manic about it. When she gets home, though, Davis is there. And Davis says, oh, really good news. I was at drinks all night with my mum. We helped her get a Broadway show. So, man. Her and Davis are getting ready to watch the opening night of this show in Davis's closet, which is still like a childhood room because they use it to deter robbers, because before they were robbed and the only place that wasn't touched was Davis's room when she was younger. They go through the bags and bags of precious jewelry in the wardrobe, and they're trying them on and seeing, you know, what they might want to wear. And then Barbara comes home and Davis panics. She's like, oh, I'm not allowed to play with the stuff in the closet, so we need to put this all back before she comes. And so they're putting everything back. Chloe has a ring on her finger that she can't get off, so she just twists it and hides it in her fist. They manage to shove the bag back in and kind of play it cool when Barbara comes in, even though Barbara is suspicious. Then she says, okay, well, dinner's in 10, and Davis is like, oh, I'll be right there. And she just kind of walks off. Oh, and the bag of all the jewelry, they didn't put it in the closet, they just shoved it behind the bed. Chloe knows that she needs to clear up, so she closes and locks the door, tries to take this ring off her finger, finally gets it off with some lotion, puts the bag back, and she sees all of these private files. So obviously, because it's Chloe, she has to have a look. Some of it's just tax forms, returns, and she takes note of Barbara's bank details because she wants to go deposit some money into that account, and she's going to pretend to be like a clueless assistant or something. So she notes that down, puts it in her back pocket, and then she sees receipts for a monthly payment of $5,000 going to Harry Wood. And she's like, why has Barbara been paying him out? Is it for his silence about her beating her child? Is it about something else? She's very suspicious. And this has been going on for genuinely 10 years. She's been paying him to stay around. Chloe was always very suspicious of Harry because he would always come in and out like whenever he wanted. He wasn't really a good friend to Davis. Not that Davis will ever admit that. They go to the show and it's very good. Barbara is exceptional. And Chloe kind of says like she forgot that Barbara was actually an actress and not just someone washed up. And she's really, really good. She kills it. She gets separated from them in the crowd. They go home without her. So she gets home and she sees Harry and Davis kind of talking, chatting at this after party. And she goes to ask them about everything. Davis admits finally that Harry has hired Davis as an editor in her magazine, and Chloe is furious because she has been putting herself at risk of getting fired for months and months and months and months, and Harry is now just giving the job to Davis for like whatever reason, and he's so sneaky. And so she crashes out on them. She's like, I'm gonna go. And Harry catches her outside in the hall and he's like, listen, like we both had to do what we had to do. You're just as conniving. You just like to pretend you're not. You know, Davis she asked me for the job. Chloe thinks, oh, maybe he was actually trying to do something nice because Davis did need like an escape from her home, and I don't know how much of her money is her own. And so she kind of calms down, even though me personally, I would not have calmed down. Good for her, she's better than me. She goes back up to the party, everything's kind of fine. The next day we find out Susan Goldsmith Cohen has died, right? And her boss asks her if she wants to run anything on that. She gets called to LK's office for this, and she thinks she's getting fired for the stealing of items or whatever. Then it turns out she's died and they want to know whether to write an article. And Chloe kind of says, no, I think we can just do like an online thing and not put it in the magazine. Then she decides it's revenge time. So she wraps up this horse and she takes it to Harry's new apartment, his little housewarming party that he's got going on. She goes, oh, is there anywhere I can put my stuff? And he says, oh yeah, check out the library, you'll love it. And she's like, yeah, okay. So she goes and she plants the horse on a bookshelf. And later on that night, she tells Harry and Davis, she's like, you two look so great together. Do you want me to get a picture of you two? And they're like, yeah, where? And she's like, oh, should we do it in the library so you look really official? And she takes a picture with this stolen horse in the background, gets them to post it on Facebook. They post it, and obviously then the next day, and she plants Barbara's Amex card. She leaves it on the desk before she leaves. And I was like, yeah. And you know what? Yeah. And in my notes, I literally put, yay! The FBI, the arts, crimes, whatever, they come and investigate the situation. Harry has been arrested the next day, and she's like, what? For what? And so the FBI come to theirs, they interview Barbara and Davis, and they say, well, you guys were at this party. We know that you had access to the study on the night that it went missing, but there are photos of Davis. She didn't have a bag, but there is a photo of Barbara holding Chloe's bag, and she freaks out. She's like, oh. But Barbara handles it very well. She says, well, do you have a warrant? Because you can't search here without one. And she's going to call some people so that they don't come back and search. But the FBI let it slip in front of Davis that Barbara has been paying Harry $5,000 a month. And Davis doesn't really understand. And Barbara explains it was so that he would kind of just stick around. you know, because everyone would leave her otherwise, and she wanted to make sure Davis had someone. So it's kind of for his silence and kind of for his loyalty. Then Davis is kind of angry about this, so she goes to the police and she says that she saw Harry on the night of Susan's party and that he was there. This is kind of like, we don't really know if she did, but she's definitely saying it. And so then they leave, they go back home. Davis and Chloe plan about moving to California together. She's saying, we could get you out of here. Like, I've saved up, we could get out. And Davis said, can we go to California? She says, yeah. And then Barbara calls her and says, Davis, I need your help with something, come here. And Davis goes, and they never talk about it again. Then the book ends with Chloe moving out. She's saved up over 200k while working, and she moves out back into Brooklyn, into her old neighborhood, and she's no longer friends with Allie, but she's also not really talking to Barbara and Davis. She's kind of happy she's got her own place to decorate and do her thing. The final scene is her in a bar, talking to people, chilling out, and then she sees Barbara and Davis through the window. She kind of watches them walk away, thinks about life, and then a little part of her makes her turn around and reach out for them, and then they're gone. And that is the end of the book. Whew! Am I right? Oh my goodness. Wow. Final thoughts. I loved this book. She is so messy, the main character. She's messy, she's sick and twisted, she's awesome. She's really relatable, lovable, hateable, all round exciting to read about. You never really know what's going to happen next, but at the same time, it's not reliant on crazy things happening. It just tells a story in a really cool way. I like the progression of all of the characters. I think the author understood the characters really, really well and created a really interesting picture, and you're not really sure how you want it to resolve. You're not really sure if you want certain things to get justice or if you don't. Not everything is tied up really neatly, but some of it and enough of it is that it feels realistic. There was really, really good attention to detail. There was really interesting description of the magazine and the fashion industry, and Caroline Palmer, who wrote this, was actually a magazine editor, and she worked for the fashion section of like the online version, Booktok, for 7 years, I think, as well as Amazon fashion as well. She was head editor of that. So she clearly knows what she's talking about. You can really tell that. The book sets time and place really, really well. You feel like you're in New York City. You feel like you're in 2003. There was a really good nuanced understanding of class and sexism, and even some mentions of race that kind of well delivered within the voice of our narrator. She would talk about things, but from the perspective of Chloe, that felt really insightful and interesting, but then would place them really realistically within Chloe's own experience. So it didn't feel like it was preaching, it felt like a real woman reacting in an imperfect and messy way to the situation she was in. The book integrated technology and changes in technology really well, and I think it also did a really good job of making the main character insane, but not to a degree where you hate her, just to a degree where you're like, what? And yeah, I can't think of anything negative that I would say, really. I love this book. It was 5 stars, 5 out of 5. I think even if you've watched this whole video, you should read this book. It's long, but I got through it in 3 days. Just do it. Just stop what you're doing. Reserve this book at your library. If you don't have a library card, go get one. What are you doing? Get one or buy it. Whatever you want to do, but you should definitely read this book. This is hands down the best out of the series so far, and I'm so excited to see if Caroline Palmer's put out any more, because this was a debut novel. This was a debut. How did she do that? I don't know. My mic is running away from me. I really, really, really recommend. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week for part 5. Oh